show. So earlier this year, the Historical Society of Pennsylvania reached out to me and my team asking if they could trace my family's roots. Here's the deal. They are one of the country's largest archives of historical documents with over 21 million manuscripts, books, and photos. They house the journal documenting Harriet Tubman's arrival in Philadelphia, the first two drafts of the U.S. Constitution, an original proof of the Declaration of Independence, and the earliest surviving American photograph. They also have a podcast called Resurrecting Voices, tracing the Philadelphia Black experience, and have hosted experts from my alma mater, Temple University, TU, which houses one of the largest and most prestigious collections of Black history and artifacts. So I took them up on the offer to find out more about my family's history. Their director of genealogical programs, Kathy Bodenhorn Barnes, even traveled to Texas, where I am from, to see what she could uncover. Take a look. The journey to finding my roots, ironically, doesn't begin in Texas, where I'm from, but deep inside the archives of one of the country's richest historical societies.
I am currently in the archives of the Historical Society of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, where I'm getting started with learning about Tamron's genealogy. Specifically, we're talking about Tamron's mom, Mary Louise Mitchell's side of the tree. Mary Louise was born in Luling, Texas, where Tamron's roots run deep.
Within 2 weeks of searching, Katie had an update.
I've been able to build out a couple generations here. So far, your tree is so interesting to me because y'all have been in Gonzales County forever. What I'm seeing here, kind of unsurprisingly, is that your ancestors were most likely enslaved in Mississippi, or in this case in North Carolina, and then brought to Texas. Henry Dismukes is your maternal great-grandfather, and we've got his World War I draft card right here. It's going to tell us his date of birth as he knew it, where he was born.
1887, wow.
So he was 30 years old. This is 1917. He was a farmer. Now on the second page then here we've got a physical description of him. We know he was tall and of medium build. So your ancestors were primarily in agriculture. They had $143 in 1870. That would be cash, that would be farming implements, livestock, things like that.
But just to know the circumstances of their lives, like, you know, $163 in property or money or whatever, these little glimpses into the lives of my ancestors, it would go a long way to fill my heart.
Henry's daughter would later marry Lewis Mitchell, my mother's father, who is my grandfather and was the anchor of our family. Holidays, summers, even traditions like our family reunion and the annual Luling watermelon thump were a part of our fiber.
To learn more about this incredible man and the challenges that my ancestors before him faced, but also their triumphs. Because for me, I'm crying not out of sadness. I'm actually quite proud he had $163 back in 18, whatever. I mean, these are tears of great pride. And there's so many things like that make me very emotional, knowing that the struggle of their life produced this great life that I have. To see the little glimpses, the little fibers of that blanket that woven this tapestry, and that sets the stage for my son now to have this information about, you know, the people who are our family.
But it turns out what Katie discovered about my family tree was just scraping the surface. While the U.S. Census goes back to 1790, African Americans weren't included in it until 1870, leaving a lot of holes in the tapestry of my family and many other family stories. So to fill in those holes, there was only one thing Katie could do: go on a road trip.
The research I've done into Tamron's ancestry so far is directing me towards Gonzales County, Texas. That's near Austin, so I have booked a flight and we are headed down there to see if I can find more information about Tamron's ancestors in some of the historical newspaper collections they have on microfilm there. So wish me luck.
Wow. Oh, so Katie is here with us now. Oh, okay, I'm like, I've been crying since we were introduced.
Honestly, I did the research and I'm already crying
Oh
here
my
too.
gosh. Oh, well, there's a big tear there. Okay. You've traced your own background, including, your last name and what it means. Why is, we know the past is important, but you do it all day and you wanted to know.
Yeah, I grew up with a lot of estrangement in my own family, and I also was a history buff, and so it kind of led me down this journey of where are my people from, how did I get to be who I am, and then ultimately that was such a fun investigative process that I wanted to do it for other people.
One of the things we talked about is that most of the people in my family, on their records, they say farmer, and you said sometimes when she, interviews people, they want like, oh, my grandfather was an actor, and they want something really big and emotional. And I started crying at farmer, and you said, I love that because it means something to me that they made their living with their hands. And I love that. And I've, the only thing that I've ever been willed in my life, we have a cousin, I'm so Texas that her name is Cut and Dink. And I was so proud because when she passed away, they said, everyone came running up to me and they said, Dink left you a plum tree. And I was like, I got a plum tree. And it was like, I hit the lottery. And I'm like, my grandpa, my papa's backyard, digging up, putting my plum tree in. And I still, to this day, I garden. I love anything of the earth. But I also know early on, they were forced to do this. My grandfather was a sharecropper.
Yep.
He had to leave school in the 2nd grade. I make a living with words he could not read. Until he passed away, he signed his name with an X, because he didn't have an education, because he had to be in the fields. So those are the emotional parts of it. But you kept digging into their past, and you were able to find some more. I don't know anything I'm reading right now because the team has surprised me about a lot of stuff. I'm hanging on to the notes. My grandpa, my papa, you were able to find more information about him as a child.
Yeah, I wanted to show you this. We're going to start here with the 1920 census. So Lewis is on here at age 17. And he's already working in farming. You can see he's there with his mom and his sister Nellie.
Yes.
Did you know Nellie?
Of course. She passed away before I was born. My grandmom, his mom, Margaret Mitchell, is that what her name's listed as?
Maggie.
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 So that was supposed to be my birth name. My birth name is Maggie. And then my mother was like, no. Her name will be Tamron. But she was apparently quite fiery and of short stature. And so whenever I lose my temper, they go, oh, here comes Mag. So if you ever hear any of my family members say, here comes Mag, that is said to not be a great thing. So yes, so that's who he left school to raise, because she was single, which I'll reveal that as well. There were a lot of people in my family who didn't have formal marriages, but they had lifetime commitments to one another, which is interesting as well.
Yeah.
Because I got married at 500 years old. I can't even remember how old I was. And my grandfather didn't marry until much later.
Right.
I think he was in his late 30s.
I think that's actually one of the interesting things about studying genealogy is that people have been doing unconventional things and having unconventional families forever.
Yeah.
And there's this perception that, we're different today, but I love seeing how we're not in a lot of ways.
And people applauded her independence because a lot of the women in my family waited to get married or had, they had life partners but were not like legally married. One of my ancestors has the last name Dismukes, which I knew. You connected me to another, they're telling me to follow the prompter here, but it's not moving. You connected me to another family in Texas with the last name Dismukes. And so, which I knew of that last name, but tell me this connection.
Yeah, so let me move on to this one. Okay. So Henry Dismukes, we mentioned, is your maternal
y'all
great-grandfather.
are all in my business on live TV because I'm telling you, this is live. Most of these shows, people do it all taped. This is live, so I'm learning this.
Yeah, this is your great-grandfather Henry Dismukes. So he would have filled out a World War I, a draft card in World War I. So we mentioned that in the video. You've got his birth date on here. You've got a physical description of him on the back there. So he was born in 1887, so that's about a generation after slavery. But in the same part of Texas, there was a white Dismukes family that came from Yalobusha County, Mississippi. And because of the uncommonness of your family's Dismukes surname, it made me wonder if there was a connection there. Now, I have not yet been able to prove that, but I do know that the Dismukes came from Mississippi to Texas right before the Civil War. They were brought there, clearly by an enslaver.
Right. And so we can be honest with the audience on this part. So this is where they came back and they said, do you want to know if you're connected to the white Dismukes family. I declined.
Right.
Because I think it would be awkward for me and them, honestly, to be like, well, your family once owned my family, and then they got to turn on TV and they're like, there's Cousin Tamron. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. So I mean, people do, for me, and I don't judge anyone who decides to go down that path. For me, I preferred for it to stop
Absolutely.
there. Is
For
that
sure.
okay? Okay. All right,
Yep.
but we have an update. I did want to talk about the money they had in his, what was it, $163? I was so proud of that because in that time, $143.
Yes.
That was a lot then.
Yeah, he may not have owned property. You'll see that first blank there means that he didn't have any real estate, but that doesn't mean he didn't have other things that with which he farmed the land and supported his family. So this is Joseph Littlefield. He's actually another one of your ancestors, also in that maternal line.